I wanted to escape the chaos of my daily life in the city. So, a few months ago, I packed my gear and drove out to the Cascade Mountains for a solo camping trip. I thought it would be my little sanctuary, a place to find peace and creativity. I wasn't a total novice at camping, but I still had a lot to learn. I set up my tent near a crystal-clear lake, surrounded by tall pines. The sun dipped behind the trees and I felt the air grow cooler. I made a small fire to ward off the chill. Everything seemed normal at first. But that night, as I lay in my tent, I heard something faint. It was rustling, maybe a squirrel or deer. I remember feeling uneasy. I wanted to dismiss it, but then I saw something move at the edge of the woods. It was quick, a shadow darting between the trees. I felt a chill creep down my spine. The next day went better. I took photos of flowers in the lake. I was excited and felt inspired until the sun set again. That night I heard giggling. It wasn't loud, but it echoed around me. I thought I might be imagining it, but the laughter felt real. I peeked outside my tent. Nothing, just darkness. By the third night, my food was rearranged. I had left it packed neatly, and now it was spread across my campsite. My snacks were out of their bags. Some empty wrappers were stacked oddly on the ground. I shook my head. Maybe I had done it in my sleep, but I wasn't sure. That wasn't all. I found drawings in the dirt. They looked like symbols, crude and unsettling. Anxiety bubbled up inside me that I couldn't shake off. That night, the giggling came again. It sounded closer. My heart raced. I grabbed my flashlight and stepped outside. I scanned the woods, but I didn't see anyone. I remember how the shadows twisted around trees. I felt cold. I rushed back into my tent and zipped it shut. I felt silly. Was I being paranoid? But I couldn't help it. I kept hearing those soft laughs, like a child's. I lay there frozen, asking myself if I should leave the next morning. Finally, I decided to pack up early and head home. I drove back shaken but trying to rationalize it all. Was it all in my head? I kept asking myself that question. Even now, I don't know what really happened out there. I still see those drawings in my mind. Sometimes I think I hear a giggle in the breeze just out of reach. Then I remember the shape in the woods. It's something I can't forget. I wonder if it was really just my imagination. Or was there something else lurking in those trees? I still dream about it at night. The shadows come alive and I hear that laughter. I'll never feel the same about camping again. I thought I was free of those memories after I got home, but they clung to me like a bad dream. The city buzzed with life, but I found myself restless, constantly glancing around as if expecting that eerie laughter to follow me. I tried to read, but my mind drifted back to the woods, the shadows, the symbols, and that feeling of being watched. A week later, I decided to check the photos from my trip. I needed to face what happened out there. Flipping through the images of the lake and the trees, I felt a strange mix of nostalgia and fear. Then I reached a photo I didn't remember taking. It was blurry, like I had snapped it too quickly. But the unsettling part? In the background, nearly obscured by the trees, I saw a silhouette. It was small and hunched over, barely visible. Heart racing, I zoomed in, but the more I tried to clarify the image, the more distorted it became. I turned off my phone and set it aside, feeling sick to my stomach. That night I couldn't sleep. The giggles echoed in my mind, and the silhouette haunted me like a ghost. I decided to confide in my friend Mark, who loved the outdoors. Maybe he would have some logical explanation for what I had experienced. I called him, and he listened patiently. "I think you need to go back out there," he said after a moment. "Face whatever it is. You can't let it get to you like this." I hesitated. Go back? The thought filled me with dread. But I knew I wouldn't find peace until I confronted what had happened. I arranged to meet Mark the following weekend for a quick hike. He was excited, suggesting we venture to the very same spot. When the day came, I felt uneasy driving back. The trees looked different, more menacing. The sky was overcast, matching my mood. Mark parked the car and we started the hike. The sound of crunching leaves underfoot filled the air. "This place is amazing," he said, smiling. I forced a nod, unable to shake the anxiety that clamped down on me. After a while, we arrived at the lake. I pointed toward the area where I had set up my tent. "That's where I camped," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. As we approached, something caught my eye. On the ground near the water, half buried in the dirt, I saw a small object. I walked over and pulled it out. It was an old weathered doll, wearing a tattered dress. Its eyes were missing, black sockets staring up at me like voids. My heart dropped. It felt wrong to even touch it. When I turned to show Mark, he had paled. "Where did you find that?" he asked sharply, his smile gone. I don't know, just here," I stammered, feeling the air grow thicker. That's when I heard it, the unmistakable sound of giggling just behind the trees. It was closer this time. "Mark," my voice was shaky. "We need to go." But he stood frozen, staring into the woods. Something shifted in the shadows, and I felt a cold breeze wash over me. I grabbed Mark's arm and pulled him. The giggles grew louder, echoing off the trees. We turned, sprinting back the way we came, but the laughter followed, taunting us. We ran as fast as we could, branches whipping against our faces. I could hear my heart pounding in my ears, mingling with the giggles that seemed to dance just out of sight. Mark stumbled beside me, his breathing ragged and frantic. "What is happening?" he shouted, panic creeping into his voice. "I don't know," I gasped, glancing over my shoulder. The trees looked like dark sentinels, bending and shifting as if they wanted to reach out and grab us. The laughter echoed again, sharp and childish, almost playful. We burst through the trees and out onto the path, but instead of relief, dread filled my chest. I stopped short. "Mark?" I turned, my eyes wide. "Where's the car?" He looked around, bewildered. "It was right here, I swear." We scanned the area, but nothing looked familiar. Panic began to crackle in the air between us. The path we had walked was a twisted maze of unrecognizable roots and shadows. "Maybe we took a wrong turn," I suggested weakly, trying to keep the rising fear at bay. Mark shook his head. "No way. We followed the right trail. We should have been back by now." That giggle floated through the air again, now mocking and closer. My stomach churned. I fought the urge to run in the opposite direction, but pressed forward instead, hoping to at least find our way back to that dreadful lake. As we moved deeper into the woods, I noticed something unusual on the ground. More dolls. They were scattered around us, each one a little different, but all similarly weathered and eyes missing. It felt like we had stumbled onto a graveyard. "What the hell?" Mark's voice quivered. I picked one up, its fabric still damp from the ground. "Why are they all here?" "Let it go!" Mark shouted. "This is too much! We need to leave!" A sudden chill enveloped us, and I dropped the doll, hearing it hit the ground with a muted thud. A muffled rustle echoed somewhere behind us, and I hesitated, feeling something heavy in the air. Then I saw it again, the silhouette from my photo. It stood among the trees, blurred yet discernible, watching us. It was small, yet from its posture appeared threatening. I grabbed Mark's arm tightly. "We can't stay here. We're being watched." He turned to look, but when he faced me again, his eyes were wide with terror. "We have to go now." We sprinted down the path, dodging branches and roots. Each step felt like a mistake, the laughter and rustling close behind. I could hear whispers riding the wind, unintelligible but urgent. Suddenly I tripped over a root and fell hard, the ground scraping my palms. I looked up, breathless, and my heart dropped. The silhouette was no longer among the trees. It was closer, just at the edge of the path, peering at us with those dark sockets where eyes should be. "Mark!" I called, scrambling back to my feet. "We have to move." But he stood frozen again, visibly trembling. "What is that?" That was when everything changed. The figure stepped forward, and the laughter exploded around us, now shrill and almost manic. My heart raced as I grabbed Mark and pulled him, forcing him to run. I didn't know where we were headed, but there was no time to think. The shadows stretched and warped, and I couldn't help but wonder, what were we running from? What had we awakened? We stumbled away from the path, the laughter still chasing us, echoing through the trees. "This way!" I shouted, yanking Mark toward a thicket that seemed less dense, hoping it would lead us away from whatever had been stalking us. "Are you sure?" he panted, fear shimmering in his eyes. I don't know, just follow me." The underbrush was thick, but I pushed my way through, determined to put distance between us and that dreadful silhouette. I could hear Mark's heavy breathing right behind me, punctuated by the occasional snap of twigs underfoot. As we pressed on, I spotted something ahead, a shadowy figure darting between the trees. It was small, almost doll-like. My heart sank. "Did you see that?" I whispered, my voice trembling. Mark nodded, his face pale. "Yeah, let's get out of here." But before I could respond, it happened. The laughter intensified, swirling around us like a storm. I stumbled and fell again, this time into a small clearing. The air felt electric, charged with an otherworldly energy. I blinked as my eyes adjusted. In the center stood a circle of rocks, perfectly placed, with dried flowers scattered around. Everything seemed surreal, like a scene from an old horror movie. "What is this?" Mark asked, his voice barely above a whisper. I crouched down to examine the rocks. "It looks like some kind of shrine." Before I could process it further, something glinted in the dirt at my feet. I reached down and picked it up. A small locket, tarnished but intricately designed. There was a faded engraving on it, but I couldn't make it out. "That's weird," I said, holding it up. Mark looked nervous, his gaze darting around the clearing. "Let's just go," he urged, backing up. "We shouldn't be here." But I hesitated. Something about the locket felt important, like it might be a piece of the puzzle. As I examined it, the chilling laughter returned, louder than before. I felt a prickle of dread creep up my spine. "Did you hear that?" I asked, my voice shaking. "Of course, we need to get out." Just then I heard footsteps approaching, barely audible but unmistakable. Shivers ran through me as the laughter stopped, replaced by a heavy silence. I looked at Mark, who was nearly trembling now. "Let's go," he yelled, grabbing my arm. I dropped the locket and stumbled after him, backtracking the way we came. The woods felt alive, branches snapping and shadows shifting. I could feel something watching us, lurking just out of reach. "Why did we come here?" Mark shouted. "This was a terrible idea." "Yes, it was," I replied, fear clawing at my throat. I glanced back and saw the small figure again, but it wasn't alone. Others emerged around it, all faceless dolls with their heads cocked in unison. My pulse quickened. "They're coming," I gasped. We turned again and ran, weaving through the trees. The figure in the locket flashed in my mind. Was it connected to this madness? As we sprinted, the laughter erupted again, taunting us, echoing through the dark forest. That was when everything went still. I felt a sudden drop in temperature, a chilling sensation wrapping around my body like a fog. I stopped, breathless, looking around for Mark, but he was gone. "Mark!" I shouted, panic rising in my chest. Then I felt something cold against my neck, like fingertips brushing lightly. I froze, heart racing. That's when I realized I was not alone. I stood frozen, the chill wrapping around me like a dark cloak. I could feel the weight of invisible eyes on my back, pricking every hair on my skin. The brush of cold fingers against my neck sent a surge of terror through me. I wanted to scream, to run, but fear kept me rooted to that spot. "Mark!" I cried again, desperation clawing at my throat. I strained to listen, hoping to hear his voice calling back, but the only sounds were the faint rustle of leaves and the distant echo of laughter that now seemed to come from all around. With every nerve on high alert, I turned slowly, scanning the clearing. The dolls were gone, and the shrine was just a circle of rocks now, nothing more than a bizarre memory. The earlier energy that had charged the air faded into an unsettling stillness, where even the wind seemed to hold its breath. Then, without warning, the laughter erupted again, this time mockingly near. My stomach twisted. "What do you want?" I screamed into the void, my voice cracking. Suddenly my eyes landed on something near the rocks, a trail of flowers leading away into the woods. They looked fresh, vibrant against the brown earth even in the dim light. Something compelled me to follow them, a connection to curiosity and dread all wrapped in one. What if they led to Mark? I took a cautious step forward, then another, my heart pounding with each movement. The flowers seemed to beckon me, their colors vivid against the murky shadows. The laughter morphed into whispers. I could almost make out words, haunting and melodic. Join us. Remember. It felt like a siren's call, and I hesitated, fighting against the urge to comply. Mark, I shouted one last time, hoping to get a response, hoping he was still out there. I followed the trail, careful but desperate. Something inside me was convinced it would lead me to him. Each step felt heavy, weighed down by anxiety. The air grew thicker, and the world around me began to shift. I could swear I felt the ground pulse beneath my feet as if alive. Then I saw it, a dim light flickering through the trees ahead. I hurried toward it, heart racing with hope. Mark, I called again, voice steadying slightly. As I approached, the light expanded into a small clearing, illuminated by dozens of tiny lanterns hanging from the branches. But it was the figures gathered there that froze me in place. They were the dolls, more than I could count, all with blank faces, their movements eerily synchronized. They swayed gently to an inaudible rhythm, surrounded by the flowers and the glimmering lights. Mark, I shouted, my voice rising above the whispering chorus, desperate to pull him back from whatever this was. One of the dolls turned its head, slowly, and for a brief moment I thought I saw a glimmer of recognition in its empty eyes. My breath quickened. This couldn't be happening. Then the surrounding laughter morphed once more, rising into a frenzied cacophony, and the dolls began to move toward me. Their tiny hands outstretched. I stumbled back, panic flooding my senses. I had to get out. I had to find Mark. Just as I turned to flee, the ground trembled again, and the laughter crescendoed, echoes of the past swirling around my mind. Join us. Remember. That's when everything went pitch black. The darkness was suffocating, a thick veil pressing down on me. I struggled to breathe, my heart racing as my surroundings vanished. I reached out, instinctively hoping to find something solid. My hands met nothing but air, and a wave of dizziness swept over me. Then suddenly a sharp light cut through the black, blinding me momentarily. I blinked, trying to adjust. When my vision cleared, I found myself back in the clearing, but it was different. The dolls were gone, and the flickering lanterns had transformed into a single, flickering candle, resting atop an old, rotting log. Mark? My voice trembled. There was no answer, just a heavy silence that wrapped around me. I was alone, but the faint laughter lingered at the edge of my hearing, taunting, echoing. I took a cautious step forward, hoping the candle might lead me to something, anything. The light flickered in and out, casting long, dancing shadows that twisted and turned around me. It felt like I was being watched, like unseen eyes were tracking my every move. I knelt beside the candle, my fingers brushing against the damp log. A chill ran through me. The log smelled of fire and decay, a blend of something forgotten. I glanced around, trying to make sense of what was happening. My mind raced. Had I truly seen those dolls, or had it all been a fever dream? With that uncertainty gnawing at my insides, I reached for the candle. Maybe it had a clue, something that could explain all this madness. But as I touched it, the flame flared violently, casting a familiar face from my past into the glowing light. The face of a girl I used to know, one I had forgotten long ago. Remember. The whispers echoed again, but this time they wrapped around me like a memory I was supposed to grasp. My heart dropped. I remembered her laughter, how we had played in these very woods. Lila, Lila, I whispered, the name barely escaping my lips. Cold fear squeezed my heart. She had disappeared years ago during a camping trip, one that had always haunted my childhood. The candle flickered again, and everything changed. The clearing around me shifted. Suddenly, I was not alone. Images and sounds flooded back, children laughing, a campfire crackling, and most unnervingly, the sight of Lila standing by the water's edge, her pale figure illuminated by the moonlight. Lila, I called out, but she didn't respond. Instead, she turned toward the water, her eyes vacant and distant. The laughter swelled around me. a mix of joy and despair that churned in my stomach. As I stood there, rooted to the spot, I realized I wasn't just seeing a past memory. I was caught between two worlds. The air chilled once more, and I felt a tug at my heart, urging me to follow her. Just as I took a step forward, the ground rumbled violently beneath me. A thunderous crack echoed as the path to the water splintered. I stumbled back, fear flooding my senses again. "No!" I screamed, struggling against the pull of the memories, but they were stronger than me. The laughter intensified, drowning out my thoughts, and Lila began to fade. In that moment of despair, the world around me dimmed again. I swallowed hard, realizing that whatever this place was, it held secrets about Mark, Lila, and things I may not be ready to uncover. Then, everything went dark once more. I gasped for air as I found myself back in darkness. It swallowed me whole again. My heart thudded loudly in my chest, a rhythm of panic as I tried to grasp my surroundings. Was I back in the clearing, or trapped in another layer of this nightmare? Slowly, the blackness faded, revealing a different part of the forest, one I didn't recognize. Gnarled trees loomed overhead, their branches twisting like skeletal fingers reaching for me. The air felt heavy with an unsettling quietness. I could still hear Lila's laughter echoing, but it was more distant now, taunting me from somewhere beyond my reach. "Lila!" I called out again, my voice cracking. I took a hesitant step forward, my foot crunching on twigs and fallen leaves. Each sound felt amplified, like the forest was alive and watching me. Then I noticed something on the ground, a small, glimmering object. I knelt down to examine it more closely. It was a locket, caked in dirt but still intact. I opened it, my hands trembling. Inside was a picture of Lila, the same one I had seen when we were children. But in the other half, I saw a shadowy figure standing behind her. It was obscured, but a shiver ran down my spine. Panic gripped me anew as the laughter returned, this time mingling with whispers that sounded almost like a chant. They rose and fell, wrapping around me like tendrils of fog. I could feel darkness creeping in again. I closed the locket, desperate to hold on to the memory, but it slipped from my fingers, landing with a soft thud on the forest floor. Just then, I heard a rustle behind me. Whipping around, I scanned the space, my heart racing. "Who's there?" I demanded, voice wavering. Nothing but silence answered me. But then, from the corner of my eye, I saw a flicker of movement, a pale figure darting between the trees. It looked like Lila. I swallowed hard and took a step toward the figure, my instincts battling between fear and familiarity. The whispers grew louder, urging me to follow. I hesitated, my mind racing. Was it really her, or was this some cruel trick? I felt stuck, caught between wanting to know the truth and the danger that loomed in the shadows. As I turned back to retrieve the locket, it was gone. My heart sank. Panic flooded me again. Where had it gone? Did I imagine it? I wanted to scream, but the words caught in my throat. My eyes darted around, desperate for any sign of Lila or the locket. That's when I saw it, a small hollow in the ground, partially obscured by leaves. Cautiously, I approached, bending down to look closer. My breath caught in my throat. At the bottom lay several more items, dried flowers, ribbons, and what appeared to be a small doll, eerily similar to those I thought I had left behind. This was it. But before I could reach in, a cold wind whipped through the forest, chilling me to the bone. The laughter erupted around me, mocking and joyous. My instinct screamed at me to run, and then I heard a voice, clear through the chaos. "Help me!" I froze. It was Lila's voice, but it sounded desperate, pleading. The darkness thickened again, and the forest began to swirl around me like a storm. I stumbled back, fighting against the pulling force around me, but it felt relentless. Then it hit me. What if I didn't just see Lila? What if I could save her? In that moment of realization, the ground trembled beneath my feet, and before I could react, everything went dark once more. When the darkness swallowed me, I braced for impact. I felt weightless, like I was falling through a void. Then, with a sudden jolt, I landed hard on the forest floor. Pain shot through my knees, but I pushed myself up, my eyes adjusting to the dim light. I was somewhere entirely different now. The trees were thinner, standing like sentinels, and the air smelled fresh, almost too clean. A soft glow pulsed ahead, beckoning me with its warm light. Against my better judgment, I stepped toward it, driven by the hope that it might lead me to Lila. The glow flickered like a candle's flame, illuminating a small clearing. In the center rested a stone pedestal, and on top of it lay an open book. Its pages fluttered as if caught in an unseen breeze. My heart raced as I approached. Could it hold answers? As I drew nearer, the words on the pages began to shift. They formed sentences, but the content felt strange, almost nonsensical. Descriptions of encounters and events mingled with sketches of faces, not just Lila's, but others. I recognized a few as friends from our childhood. My breath quickened. Why were they here? Then I noticed something moving in the corner of my vision. I turned to see a shadow darting between the trees just outside the clearing. My anxiety flared again. Whoever, or whatever, was out there felt too close for comfort. "Lila!" I called out again, more desperate this time. I didn't want to be alone with whatever darkness lingered. I turned back to the book, hoping for clarity, something that would tell me what was happening. But instead, the writings morphed into a frantic scrawl, almost pleading. "Find me." I stumbled back, heart pounding in my chest. The glowing light flickered wildly, and in that moment I felt a deep sense of dread wash over me. This was a trap. I had to get away. I spun around, determined to leave the clearing, but the shadows thickened. They wrapped around the edges of the trees, seeping into my space, encroaching. The whispers returned, layered with a sharp urgency, drowning out my thoughts. "Help her," they whispered. "You must help her." I sprinted toward the edge of the clearing, through a hallway of darkness. But as I reached the tree line, a cold hand gripped my wrist. I yelped, pain radiating from the pressure clamping down on me. "Not yet," a voice breathed near my ear. I felt the unmistakable chill of dread seep into my bones. "You haven't found her." I twisted to free myself, but the grip tightened, and I was yanked back into the clearing, back to the pedestal. The book had closed. The shadows danced around it, vibrant and chaotic. My vision blurred, slipping in and out of focus. "Please, I have to find her," I shouted, my voice cracking. But the laughter returned, merging with the whispers, my pleas lost in the cacophony. As I struggled against the encroaching darkness, a revelation struck me. I was not just searching for Lila. I was part of this. The shadows wanted me. And then everything went dark again. I gasped for air, the darkness wrapping around me like a fog I couldn't escape. A rush of cold wind swirled at my feet, pulling me downward. But before I could sink into despair, a flash of light burst forth, illuminating my surroundings. The clearing reappeared, but it looked different now, edgier, as if the shadows had thickened, weight hanging heavy in the air. I pushed myself onto my hands and knees, heart racing. My mind tried to wrap around what had just happened. I was back at the pedestal. The book was still closed, but some force tugged at me, an insistence that I should open it. "Lila!" I called again, voice hoarse. But the sound faded into the shadows, swallowed up. I moved closer to the pedestal, hoping for some guidance, something solid to hold on to. As I reached for the book, a tremor coursed through the ground. The trees creaked above me, and the atmosphere shifted again. That's when I saw it. A distorted figure emerged from the trees, tall and wretched, twisting in and out of existence like a mirage. My breath caught in my throat as its eyes met mine, dark pools reflecting my fear. It pointed, bony fingers aimed straight at me. "Help her," it croaked, a voice like dry leaves scraping against stone. Panic surged through me. Was this another illusion? I didn't want to find out. "Where is she?" I shouted back. The shadow only let out a wheezing laugh, echoing through the clearing. I stepped back, uncertainty gripping me, but the shadows weren't done. They swirled more aggressively, wrapping around my ankles like tendrils trying to pull me under. I fought against them, adrenaline kicking in. I didn't know where to run. Every direction felt like a trap. Glancing back at the book, I felt an undeniable curiosity. It had changes to reveal, I was certain. Then, just as the oppressive darkness tightened around me, a memory flashed through my mind. Lila's laugh, bright and full of life. It anchored me. I had to find her, no matter the cost. With renewed determination, I lunged at the book, my fingers brushing against its surface. As I opened it, the pages burst into a flurry of images. I saw snapshots of my friends, moments from our lives, snapshots of joy. Then, amid the laughter and series of recollections, I spotted Lila, her face beaming with an energy that felt so real. Mixed with the happiness was an undercurrent of sorrow, a crack that dashed through the images like lightning. But then, the laughter faded, replaced again by hushed whispers. They layered over one another, insistent. "You must find her, she might be lost." A feeling of urgency washed over me. I had to find her before she became another prisoner of this place. As I grasped that truth, the shadows surged violently, pulling me backward, away from the pedestal. I struggled against them, but they had grown stronger. Suddenly the light of the clearing dimmed and I felt a new presence behind me. Someone else was here, lurking in the darkness. I turned, bracing for confrontation, heart in my throat, screaming at the void. "Who are you?" But as I faced the unknown, all I heard was silence, the calm before another storm. I stood in the eerie quiet of the clearing, heart racing, the shadows twisting around me like icy tendrils. The presence behind me felt palpable, but I couldn't bring myself to turn around. I could feel its eyes on me, as though it were waiting for some signal to strike. "Lila!" I shouted once more, desperation cracking my voice. "I'm here. I'm trying to help you." The emptiness around me echoed my words, a haunting reminder of my isolation. Suddenly, the shadows surged forward, coiling around my ankles. I fought against them, adrenaline pumping through my veins, but they tightened their grip. My instincts screamed at me to flee. I glanced at the pedestal, the book still fluttering with images, filled with faces I recognized yet felt disconnected from. "Find her!" the distorted voice rasped alluringly, and the shadows pulled me deeper into their midst. With every ounce of willpower, I tore myself away from the shadows, stumbling toward the pedestal. I felt my heartbeat echoing in my ears, drowning out the whispers that grew frantic. "Help her!" a chorus urging me on. I reached for the book once again, this time with intent. I needed an answer, a clue, anything to show me Lila's fate. As I opened the book, the pages flashed images in quick succession. Snapshots of laughter, of sunlit days spent along the lake, of friendship and joy. But as the flipbook memories passed, they shadowed over to darkness. The laughter twisted into cries, the light fading, the joy replaced by sorrow. Lila's face would flash, fearful, desperate, as if silently pleading for help. I gasped, feeling a spectral chill wrap around my heart. "I won't leave you," I whispered. The shadows surged again, and suddenly, in the depth of the book, Lila's face emerged, trapped beneath a veil of darkness. The sight nearly brought me to my knees. Her expressions reflected a struggle that mirrored my own. The scene shifted violently. A memory unfurled. It showed Lila standing at the water's edge, blissfully unaware of the darkness seeping around her. The very same woods I had been lost in. My heart stopped. This isn't just woods, it's... And then everything changed. The clearing began to tremble, the shadows leaping, writhing like they were alive. The laughter swelled, echoing around me once more, taunting and teasing. I braced myself as the ground cracked and trembled beneath my feet. "No!" I yelled, heart hammering. "I'm not scared of you!" I shoved the book closed, refusing to give in to the swirling chaos. I stepped back, prepared to fight my way free. But I wasn't prepared for what happened next. The clearing exploded in a flash of brilliant white light, filling the space so intensely that everything around me melted away. As the brilliance subsided, I found myself watching Lila stand at the water's edge, alone. My breath caught. "Lila!" I breathed, but she didn't respond, her form shimmering, flickering like a candle caught in the wind. I looked around, searching for the shadows, the whispers. The darkness was still, but the air hummed with tension. Something shifted within me, a connection sparked. "Help me," she whispered, her voice barely detectable. I took a step toward her, but the air ignited with energy. "Lila!" In that moment, I felt clarity pulse through me, a recognition that this was not simply about retrieving her. It was about understanding, grasping the bond we shared, realizing that the shadows fed on fear and separation. I reached into my pocket, feeling the locket I had dropped earlier. It was still there, the cool metal grounding me. Holding it close to my heart, I focused my thoughts. "We were friends, Lila. I remember you. I won't let you go again." The shimmering figure flickered, caught between tears and hope. "You remember. Please don't let them take me." Behind me, the laughter reached a fevered pitch, but I pressed forward, defying the darkness. "Lila, I'm here. I'll find a way to pull you back. Together." As I reached out, the swirling shadows pushed against me, pulling me apart. I fought against the wave, willing all the love, all the memories we had to cross the chasm, to breach the void. We're together. We're not lost. Suddenly, a bond ignited between us, a thread of light arching out to Lila, connecting over the churning darkness. I felt her strength surge through the connection as she stepped closer to the edge of the water. "Hold on to me," I shouted, and I lunged forward, arm outstretched. The surrounding chaos began to fracture, light spilling through the cracks. "Help me!" she cried again, and just then the darkness around me twisted violently, trying to consume our bond. "Never!" I yelled, and with every ounce of determination I pulled as hard as I could. The shadows roared in fury, darkness crackling and sparking. Then, in one single moment when despair threatened to drown us, the ground beneath her flickered back to life. Brilliant colors emerged, flowers blooming around her feet. The tension snapped, releasing us from the clutches of the shadows. "Together!" I shouted again, and with a final surge we grasped hold of each other's hands. The darkness imploded inward, consumed by the vibrant light we created together. With a blinding flash, the laughter was replaced by silence, and then the echoes of freedom. The world took on a kaleidoscope of colors as the woods sighed in release. I crumbled to the ground, heart racing, breathless. Around us the shadows receded, leaving nothing but a shimmering light illuminating the path home. I turned to find Lila beside me, the child I once knew, smiling back at me. "Thank you," she whispered, her eyes glistening with gratitude. As the weight of the woods lifted from my shoulders, I knew something had shifted. I'd escaped the chaos, but lingering questions danced in the back of my mind. Was it truly just childhood memories haunting me, or something deeper? I didn't know. Together we turned away from the remnants of the shadows, moving toward the light. I still felt a tremor of unease lingering just out of reach, a reminder of the unseen. I wasn't sure how much of this I truly understood, but I also knew I would never be the same. And sometimes, late at night, I still think I can hear faint giggles in the breeze, echoes of something lingering beyond the shadows. I chose to leave those whispers unexamined. I'd learned to live with the uncertainty. Together.